Next reader, Joe Giordano. I first met a few years ago when I was working on my last book, Roots of Steel, about the Sparrows Point Steelworks in Baltimore. Thank you. And I went to a great photography show at the Creative Alliance called Stainless, which was photographs of Bethlehem Steel retirees and also some really beautiful, what I guess you would call ruin porn of the mill. And
it was in the main gallery downstairs.
Main gallery downstairs. Anyway, those were Joe's photographs. I hope you all have the opportunity to see them one of these days, and I think that you will. More generally, Joe is an award-winning photographer and writer. Since moving back to Baltimore from Prague in 2001, he's been the recipient of the Lorian Hemingway Award for his short story Flight. Was a regular contributor to the Chicago Literary Quarterly, After Hours, and has accumulated numerous awards from the Society of Professional Journalists and the Maryland, D.C. Press Association. As a photographer, he has shown in New York and Baltimore with solo exhibitions at the SoHo Hotel, Metro Gallery, Gallery CA, and the main gallery at the Creative Alliance. His work has also appeared in the London fashion magazine ID on several occasions. He is working on a project now called Killer Angels, Faces of American Death Metal. We were hoping those photos would accompany the reading, but sadly they will not. You'll just have to go see them elsewhere. Please welcome Joe.
Yeah, so it doesn't keep going.
He's also a drunk. Just saying. I'm just kidding. First of all, I don't have a book published. But I'd like everybody to give a big hand to the authors that have read before me. So, and buy one of their books on the way out, because you're going to spend it at Club Charles anyway, so you might as well buy one of their books. All right, just thought I would just do that. I'm going to end on an up note. It's about a woman who collects dead bodies. This was written for the City Paper. It appeared January 2nd, 2013. The headline is Corpse Courier. When the time comes, Emily Wyatt brings the dead to the next stage on their journey. By me. Emily Wyatt lives for the dead. The Remington resident will pull up to your house in her nondescript silver van and quietly take your expired loved ones to the next stop on their journey. I love my job, says Wyatt, while sitting in a cafe surrounded by the living and breathing. I seriously like working with the dead. Wyatt is a funeral service employee for a firm outside of Baltimore. When someone dies, the funeral home calls a company like Wyatt's, and they come and collect what's left. To my knowledge, I don't actually have an official job title, she says. My grandmother came up with Corpse Courier, which I'm fond of. I like to think of Charon, the ferryman in Greek mythology who ferried the dead across the river Styx, although no one has ever gotten that reference. Though it's definitely not in her job description, Wyatt is something like a cab driver for the dead. Most of her day is spent waiting. I wait until the phone rings, she said, get a location, and go to pick them up. Then she wraps them in a body and loads it onto the gurney and takes it to the morgue of the funeral home. Dressed top to bottom in black, with a serious face, and a pair of gold vampire fang rings, Wyatt looks like she could be that ferryman of the River Styx who she spoke so highly. The diminutive 23-year-old has always had a fondness for the departed, and the dark side of things. Although she hates being labeled a goth, she hates zombie films but loves vampires, except for the sparkly kind in the Twilight series. She prefers Philadelphia's Mutter Museum, which specializes in medical oddities. If you haven't been there, you should really go, to the Met. I've always been drawn to the morbid and macabre, and death is endlessly fascinating to me, she says. I know that a lot of people will find it scary, and I think that's what interests me. I'm still figuring out what about it is so captivating, in all honesty, and I'm not a goth. I don't think I could wear a brightly colored floral dress. There may have been a moment in her childhood, though, that created her love for the darker side of life. Sorry, Marco Rubio moment. There we go. When I was a kid, mine was closer though, right? When I was a kid, I saw someone drown at a birthday party, she said. And later, I saw a little girl fall from a second-story window. Since then, I've always been into things that are a little off-kilter and strange. And death scenes are more morbid than other people sometimes think. Quote, people say, oh, they look like they're sleeping, Wyatt says. People have this image in their head that when we die, it's peaceful, but that's not the case. Eyes and mouths are open, sometimes they purge. The human body does some pretty smelly things. Wyatt suggests that we all keep an eye on our diet and stay in good health if you want to die attractively. Everyone should eat healthier, she says with a rare smirk. It's pretty rare, trust me. Wyatt also has to deal with distressed relatives, lovers, or parents, and that last one can be rough. I'd say the worst part of my job is going to a house where a child has died, or a suicide, Wyatt says. It's also our job to see that the last moment of the loved one is a good one. We don't show up and coldly take the body away, she says. My favorite part is when a family member comes over to me and thanks me for how I've handled the deceased. I think that's the best part, she says. It's very important to me that I treat everyone with respect and dignity, and it's really lovely when this is acknowledged. Wyatt often drives through one of her favorite spots in the city, the Green Mountain Cemetery. The literal, actually that's a typo, the Baltimore Cemetery, the literal dead end to North Avenue. She admires the passing headstones. I love the old parts of these cemeteries, she says, looking out of the window as names etched in granite and marble flash by. All the new ones are so blah and manufactured. It's like they were made on an assembly line. It's all fabricated and there's no craftsmanship in them. Wyatt is eyeing up colleges in New York with a plan to specialize in mortuary science. She's the only one in her current job she's been in her current job for only a few months, but she's sure that she wants to spend the rest of her days with the dead, until she's cremated, that is. My friends were fed up with me talking about death all the time, she says. And then I found this job and it all clicked into place. And that's what I want to do for a living. But I'm not sure which direction I want to go in. Perhaps not surprisingly, her chosen occupation has given her a greater love for life as well. I was a bit nervous that being in the funeral industry would start to fuck with my head, she says. It can be incredibly gloomy and depressing, but I found that it's actually made me happier and even more positive. Being surrounded by death all day makes you really want to fucking live, as corny as that sounds. The trivial shit in life doesn't matter at all anymore, and I do everything I can to live harder and better. Thank you. Final note, I haven't read since elementary school, so I really apologize.